Well, I'm excited to continue our If Then series, and we've been kind of looking through the letters, and I'm going to be preaching the whole month of June, and we're going to kind of finish the series over the next 4 weeks. And this is really this whole concept throughout the letters of John is that John really writes this letter because there are some people that used to be a part of the community, used to be a part of that particular church, and because of their own decisions, they have stepped out of that community. But it wasn't enough just for them to step out of the community. They were trying to entice other people to step out of the community as well. And so John aggressively writes a letter about the spirit and the culture of what the church should be. And essentially he's saying, hey, if you are a person of Jesus, then this is what kind of your life should look like. And I want to read out of 1 John chapter 2. 1 John chapter 2 and in verse 15, this is what he says. He says, do not love the world or the things in the world. Now, come on, we could just stop there and meditate on that and preach on that for about 2 hours. Do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, then he describes it, the desires of the flesh and the desires of the eyes and the pride of life. It's not from the Father, but is from the world. And the world is passing away along with its desires. But whoever does the will of God abides forever. Children, it is the last hour. And as you have heard that Antichrist is coming, so now many Antichrists have come. Therefore we know that it is the last hour. Real soft message here. Verse 19, he says, they went out from us, but they were not of us. For if they had been of us, they would have continued with us. But they went out that it might become plain that they are not of us. But you have been anointed by the Holy One, and you have knowledge. I write to you not because you do not know the truth, but because you know it, and because no lie is of the truth. Who is the liar but he who denies that Jesus is the Christ? This is the Antichrist, he who denies the Father and the Son. No one denies the Son. No one who denies the Son has the Father. Whoever confesses the Son has the Father also. Let what you heard from the beginning abide in you. If what you heard from the beginning abides in you, then you too will abide in the Son and in the Father. And this is the promise that he has made to us, eternal life. I want to preach a message today that I'm going to call This Is Over. This is over. Or let's go with a different title in case you don't like that one. Let's call it End It Already. End It Already. Either one of those titles. Let's pray. God, I thank you so much for your word. We love you. And Lord, I pray, God, that you would give us the courage to walk away from some things that we have learned to lean on that aren't godly. God, I pray our love for you would outweigh our love for this world. And God, I pray that you would give us a deep, abiding conviction to serve you and to follow you faithfully. In Jesus' name, we all said, amen. Amen. Have you ever found yourself in a position and upon investigating where you found yourself, you had this thought, how did I get here? You ever have a moment like you kind of look around, you're like, how do I find myself right where I'm at? A handful of years ago, maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago or so, me and my father-in-law went to Disney World. I think the girls were doing something, and I was like, I'm going to win Husband of the Year, and I'm going to take my father-in-law to go do something, right? And so we go to Disney World, and we're hanging out, and I think my father-in-law is a big rides guy. I don't think he's a big rides guy. So I get him in line for a ride, and I could tell when we got in line, he didn't know what the ride was. I could tell. And so we get in line for Tower of Terror. We get in line for Tower of Terror. And we're in line, and we're just kind of chopping it up. We're just talking about life, just hanging out. And I can tell he does not know what the ride is. I can tell because he keeps looking at the ride. And if you know anything about Tower of Terror, you can hear people screaming while you're waiting. Right? You can hear people screaming. And he's like, so what is this? I'm like, oh, it's chill. It's like a little kid ride. super chill ride. Like, you know what I mean? It's like you only have to be like, 4 feet tall to ride this. So like, you're good. And we're in line. And I can tell by the look on his face, he's getting more and more nervous as we get close. I can tell, I can just read it, right? And we get in, and we go up to go up the elevator part and kind of start to get on the ride. And I know he's sitting there. And while he's sitting there, I can read the thought bubble over his head. And the thought bubble over his head is, how did I get here? I don't even really like my son-in-law. Like, how do I find myself in this position? And all of us have had seasons and moments and times in life where we are on this ride called life and we're like, how did I get here? By the way, this is life. This is how life works. And the reason why so many times we find ourselves in this position is because we were born and placed on a ride that had some issues from the very beginning, right? And so we know that we were born into sin. So so sometimes you might ask yourself, why am I so dysfunctional? How come I'm not further along? How come I'm not how come my character wanes so much? And the reality is that you started and you got on this ride called earth. Yeah, you can look at some nature things and you can look at some different things, but the reality, as soon as we were born as sinners. We were born imperfect. And so from the get, you have the internal conflict. And then in addition to that, as you go in life, you realize, oh, I was not just born into an internal conflict in that I am a sinner. I am born into an external conflict, which is to say we live in a fallen, imperfect, broken, and hurting world. And so you don't just have the internal, how did I get here? You have the external, how did I get here? And we all find ourselves in the position of going, what am I supposed to do in this space? Because we are all born in the world within its systems, trying to do our best after coming to faith to serve God within this construct. And there is a problem with the world. There is something that can be frustrating about the world. Because oftentimes in church, we talk about the faithfulness of God, right? And that is a good thing to talk about, that God is faithful, that he will never leave you or forsake you, that he is with you, that he is your ever-present help in time of need. But what you have to understand also is, yes, God is faithful, but can I just tell you this too? So is the world and its systems and its desire to speak into your life. It is consistent. This is why right about the time you think you have an issue handled, you hear the voice. Right about the time you think you got things all kind of nailed down, right? Because the reality is this, probably all of us right now, if I was like, hey, what's something in your life that if you actually got it under rest could make the biggest difference? Sometimes I believe people following God live under I call it the one sin delusion. Which is to say, you in your mind think, man, I have this guilt and I have this shame over this one thing, and if I could just get this one thing under control, then I would feel like a perfect Christian and I would be able to leap tall buildings with a single bound. But the problem is that you get that one thing under rest, and then what do? You go, oh, I have many issues. I have many things going on in my life. And what we have to understand is that this world and its systems and its approach to living is faithful. In fact, I have some pet peeves when giving counsel, when giving advice. I have some pet peeves. But one of my pet peeves takes place into how people make a decision as to which advice they're going to listen to. It drives me crazy. Because what I see more times than not, I don't see people taking the best advice. I don't often or always see them taking the advice from the person that has the fruit of their life that they should want, and therefore taking that person's advice. Oftentimes what I see people taking the advice of whoever the last person they spoke to was. Oftentimes, by the way, young people, you're the worst at this. It's just like you can hear great advice, but at the end of the day, you're gonna do whatever the advice that you got last. And can I just tell you, that's exactly how, that is the arrangement that this world has made with you. Listen, this is the arrangement which the spirit of this world has made with you, and it's this. You can go to church all you want. You can read everything you want. You can get filled up all you want. You can set up a meeting with your pastor all you want. And you can get in your city group all you want and have great fellowship and you can have people pray for you all you want. But I just ask one thing. Let me have the last word. That is the arrangement that this world has set up with you. And this is why sometimes we're so confused, because we're doing all the stuff and we're not growing at the rate that we think we should. And it's because we're open to the last word of this world. And so that's why you can have all the disciplines you want, but it doesn't matter because here's what matters. Who spoke to you last? What was the last voice that you heard? This is why you have to be careful. This is why I'm a firm believer in this, is that your ears are the portal to your heart. Your ears are the portal to your heart. Whatever you're listening to, what's ever going on, sometimes it is your own voice, sometimes it's, as John says, antichrist. Now, he doesn't mean like horns at this point. He's saying people in your world that would try to lead you away from God. People in your world that would be anti-God in your life. Anti-Christ in your life. And so what you and I have to do is we have a responsibility to govern and to bend our ears towards heaven. See, it's not that we don't desire the things of God. It's just that we still love the world. Not for what it produces, but for how it makes us feel. It's not that you don't love God. It's not that I don't love God when we keep succumbing to the world and its systems. It's just, man, we just love the world a little too much, and not what it produces, because the reality is this: all of us in this room have seen the fruit of living your life in a worldly sense over a godly sense. Every single one of us has seen the fruit of that and went, I don't really like the fruit. The problem is I still kind of like how it feels. In fact, my only point today is this, is that your relationship with this world will foreshadow where your relationship with God is headed. Your relationship with this world, it will absolutely foreshadow where your relationship with God is headed. I love that John admonishes, he says, don't love the world or the things in the world. If you love the world, the love of the Father is not in you. What he's saying, he's not saying that God doesn't love you. He's just saying it is going to be difficult for you to accept the love of God with a love of the world. For all that is in the world, the desires of the flesh, the desires of the eyes, the pride of life, it's not from the Father, it's from the world. And then this is interesting in verse 17, and the world is passing away along with its desires, but whoever does the will of God abides forever. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision as to who you're going to side with in a particular argument? That's a fascinating one, huh? You have to make a particular. Now, when I got married, now this doesn't happen often. It never happens now. It happened maybe a little more earlier in mine and Christina's marriage. But if there was ever a disagreement between Christina and my mother, if there was ever a disagreement between Christina and my mother, I made a decision even before I got married because I'm a simple man, and so I make simple choices. And so I said, look, if there's ever a disagreement between my mom and my mother, I live with one of them as a married man, and I don't with the other. And so I'm going to side with the one that I live with 10 times out of 10. That is how this is going to work, right? I'm siding with the person that I'm gonna live with. This is how this is supposed to work. Guys, this is how this is supposed to work, okay? I always hate when I say stuff like that in messages, because then women just use it against you, and you're like, I'm not going back to that church. I'm sorry. Use it fairly, ladies, use it fairly. And the reality is this, listen, there's gonna come times in your life And by the way, it's not every decision of every day. It's not like every decision that you make every single day is a choice between like living life in a worldly spirit or living life for God. But there will come moments in your life, and there's gonna come critical moments in your life where the two are at odds, where the two are in direct competing opposition. And the question is, when the rubber meets the road, where do you go? And can I tell you, probably all of us in this room, I mean, it'd be nice, we're in church, right? It'd be nice to say we've always made the right decision. But come on, there have been times where we've lied to get ahead. There's been times where we've lied to win an argument. There's been times where we felt something and we never said anything and told the appropriate people. And then we ask ourselves, how did I get here? Well, you know how you got here if we were being real honest. You got here because you had a twinge in your gut here. And because you had a moment, a critical moment in your life where a world spirit was competing with a godly spirit and you did not do what you know you should have done, you find yourself on the tower of terror. Going, how did I get here? No, you know how you got. In fact, anytime I meet with somebody, they're like, I just don't know how I got here. I go, let's trace it. Because we can find it. And it doesn't make you bad, it makes you a human being. It just means that, oh man, when you had that critical moment where there were two competing spirits at play, you gave in. And that's okay, but we don't want to live our life like us. Now you gotta understand, this is different than because sometimes when you read a passage like this, right, do not love the world or the things in the world, you're like, wait, I thought John 3:16 said, for God so loved the world that he gave himself for the world. Now, what you have to understand is there are two different things that they're talking about, right? Jesus is obviously, the Bible's obviously talking about what? The people in the world, right? The Bible's, in John 3:16 is talking about what? The people of the world. No, we are called to love people. What this scripture is talking about is what? The world systems. In fact, that's why I love that John describes it. He says the desires of this flesh, the desires of the eyes, the pride of life. That is the thing that we are supposed to be mindful of. Like, that's the reality. Now, the problem is we can sense that our relationship with the world is unhealthy, but people stay in unhealthy relationships all the time. Right? You ever see somebody stay in an unhealthy relationship? Like you see it from afar, or maybe you've stayed in an unhealthy relationship. I wrote down a few reasons why I think people stay in unhealthy relationships or relationships that are going nowhere, that are kind of dead ends. One of those is this, is that we have gotten comfortable in unhealth. That is one reason why people stay in dead-end relationships or unhealthy relationships, is that we have gotten comfortable in unhealth. Now, like my family grew up, like when I was coming up, we had really unhealthy things on television that were us uninformed getting accustomed to unhealth. Like I grew up in the Jerry. I grew up in that era. Anybody else know what I'm talking about? Yeah, that's the era I grew up in. Like I grew up kind of coming home, and that's just like background noise. Jerry. Wilco runs out there, breaks up the fight. Now he's got his own show, I saw. So what is happening to the world? You know what I mean? But I grew up, and you want to know what that was teaching me? To get comfortable with unhealth. That I was watching unhealth for entertainment. Now, it's amazing. I think oftentimes you got to be careful that your dependency on this world hasn't made you comfortable. Your desire to just kind of do what you've always been doing doesn't outweigh your ability to go, man, I care more about getting healthy than I do being comfortable. You got to be careful of that. The other reason why people stay in dead-end relationships or unhealthy relationships is that we are insecure about being alone. Oftentimes people go, well, if I end this unhealthy, toxic friendship, I'm afraid that I won't have any friendships. Or if I end this relationship, I'm afraid I won't have any. You have to trust God when he says, I will never leave you or forsake you. I'm not going anywhere. I'm for you. I love you. He's not going anywhere. The problem is what would happen if we started making some godly decisions and then somebody was weirded out by my godly decision. Like, what if I was actually at a bar with my friends and I chose not to drink because I know I have a propensity to drink too much, and I actually really, what I've kind of hid behind is I hid behind the guise of being a witness, when in reality I actually have a drinking problem, and I'm actually more afraid of my friends by them going, what, that's weird, you're not drinking, and I don't want to get over that very momentary, slightly awkward thing, and I'm just going to kind of keep going. Because I'd be afraid if I said, no, I don't really want to be in that environment anymore because I have a propensity to drink too much. And it's unhealthy for me. I'm afraid I'd be alone on Friday nights. See, people stay in unhealthy relationships literally just because I'd rather be unhealthy with people than be healthy and alone. Another reason why people stay in dead-end relationships is that we have a beat-down sense of self-worth. We've been beat down. We've just been beat down, and so we don't really understand our value. We don't understand what God has put in us. We don't understand who we are. We don't understand that we are sons and daughters of God. We don't understand that there's a calling on our life. We don't understand that there's value on our life. We don't understand that God has high purposes for our life. And so we've been so beat down by thinking, this is the most I can contribute. In fact, you want to know what's interesting is the reality, theologically speaking, is that was the reality of our relationship with God. And so God actually came so that we could surrender our life to him and he could change us from the inside out. Because the reality of that is that was true, right? We were unworthy. The Bible says that while we were, yet enemies of God, while we were ungodly, Christ came down for the godly. God wanted a relationship so bad with you that he came down, made you worthy, and said, okay, now have a relationship with me. Say, I want to be so close to you and so connected to you and in such a great, dynamic, flourishing relationship with you that I will change you from the inside out. Now listen, if you have surrendered your life to Jesus, you've been changed from the inside out. You are a child of God. You have value to you. So don't let the world beat you down, make you feel insecure, and cause you to make decisions that are furthering the destruction of your future. And then it goes on to say, verse 17, the world is passing away along with its desires. You got to understand this. Your relationship with the worldly patterns and approaches, it's going nowhere. You just don't know it yet. You keep falling into these patterns. We keep falling into these patterns. And it's going nowhere. And you and I have to come to grips with, is the way that I'm doing life, can I do this for the next 20 years? Like in 30 years, if I was still right here, right now, operating in the same patterns that I am right now, am I okay with that? In verse 19, it says, they went out from us, but they were not of us. For if they had been of us, they would have continued with us. And then in verse 20 says, but you have been anointed by the Holy One, and you have knowledge. Now I want to ask a question. Anybody in here, I'm going to whittle this crowd down, right? I'm going to whittle this crowd down a little bit, okay? Anybody in here, you've ever, and please participate, right? Be good sports. Anybody in here, you just have ever went for a run. It don't have to be a long run. You just went for a run or a walk. Let me see your hand. Okay, yeah, okay, thank God. Okay, cool. Okay, put your hand up, right? Everybody in the room. All right, let me see your hand if you have ever ran like a 5K, which would be like 3.1 miles. Let me see your hand. Okay. Cool, a little less, right on. Congratulations. Happy for that. You got a little 5 on the back of your car. Cool. Braggarts. 26 point whatever. It's like, get out of here. Right? How many of you ran a 10K? Let me see your hand. You ran a 10K. Okay, hold on. Keep your hand up. That's pretty good. It's pretty good. Half marathon. Who in here, you ran a half marathon? Keep your hand up. Those people deserve some applause. Half marathon, my goodness. I don't drive a half marathon, okay? Keep your hand up. Okay, let me stand. If you ran a marathon, you've ran a marathon. Keep your hand up, keep your hand up, keep your hand up. That's amazing. The few and the proud, few and the proud. Now, wasn't it interesting that this thing dwindles? Every step you go, right? We started out with hundreds of people, every hand raised in the room to like 6 people at the very end. You know what I found to be true about Christianity? I don't mean like the American version of Christianity. I don't mean just like the casual Christian. I'm talking about like real deal. I'm a Jesus person. I'm in this come hell or high water. You know what I found? This ain't for everybody. That's what I found. It's not for everybody. Now, hear me, let me give context. It's for everybody. But not everybody's up for it. Local church, being a part of a community with a bunch of imperfect people that are different ages and different races and different backgrounds and different political affiliations, different thoughts, different economic realities, different educational realities. It's not for everybody. Now, it's for everybody. But not everybody's up for it. And there's some people that were here and that went, no, I'm good. And you wanna know what I've found about people? Not just our church, I'm talking about the church in general. Those people never just go away. They never just go away. They're always in your ear. You wanna know how many meetings I had to say, stop listening to that person just because they couldn't hack it. Just because they didn't want to go from a 5K to a 10K to a half to a full. Stop listening to destructive people. Stop listening to in context. I'm gonna get a lot of flack for this. Stop listening to antichrists. People that are anti-God, that didn't have the humility to stay connected and tethered to the body of Christ. To say, I'm in it with people. I believe in people. I love people. I'm passionate about people. It's wild to me how many people that opt out can't just opt out. They gotta come back in. And they gotta mess with your consistency. And they have to mess with your faithfulness. And they have to mess with your ability to say, man, you know what? I am here and I am a part. I love that John says, you wanna know how you would know if they were of us? They'd still be here. You wanna know how you knew that they were born of the same spirit? They'd still be here. You wanna know the litmus test of people that are just gonna be faithful? They're still here. And I love this Mark Batterson quote. He says, man, there's so many people that are too worldly to enjoy their relationship with God and too godly to enjoy their relationship with the world. And I don't want to be one of those types of followers of Jesus. And by the way, that is kind of like hell on earth to me. To be in that middle space where you're too God conscious to really just go buck wild crazy. but you're too worldly to really fully enjoy your relationship with God. I mean, to really step in and go, look, God, I'm not perfect, but I'm trying to enjoy the fullness of all that it is to actually follow God. It is impossible to last forever with a love for the world and a desire for God. This is why, by the way, Jesus said this. He says, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And can I just tell you, that's true as long as you're not carrying another yoke. His yoke is easy and his burden is light, but try to carry a yoke of the world and try to carry the yoke of Jesus that he offers. And you're like, why? This is why sometimes we're like, I talk to people all the time, they're like, why does this seem so hard? I'm like, because there's probably some yoke of the world that you're trying to carry along with the yoke that Christ offers that is easy and the burden that is light. In fact, I want to have the team come up. I want to finish with this last part. Because he goes through and he talks about these antichrists that are trying to pull people away. And then in verse 24, he says, let what you heard from the beginning abide in you. If what you heard from the beginning abides in you, then you too will abide in the Son and in the Father. And this is the promise that he has made us, eternal life. What he's saying is, guys, we got to go back to the beginning. And you're going to be hearing that theme of John the whole time over the next 4 weeks. We got to go back to the beginning. Like, I remember when I first got saved, right? I was 17 years old. Christianity was so simple. It was like the easiest thing in the world. Like when I first got saved, it was just like, I cannot believe that God actually loves me. I cannot believe in all my depravity and all my fallenness and all the stuff I did and even the stuff that I think and the thoughts, the crazy thoughts that I have. God still loves me. In fact, he loves me so much that he sent his son for me, endured the cross for me, and desires to have a relationship with me, and he's changed me from the inside out. Did all of my behavior modification change in a moment? No, but it was so simple because life was about loving God and then loving people. I went, man, this is simple. And can I tell you now, I've been in ministry for a minute, and now I'm getting to the age where I'm starting to see some of my friends that do what I do for a living fall. I'm starting to see them just fall, and they do what I do. We've had them at our church. And I'm just starting to see, and I'm just going, ah. And I'm having these conversations with them, and we're talking about how we got here. I'm talking to people in our church about how we got here. This is a conclusion that I've come to. This stuff happens in front of us all the time, and we learn nothing. Some of us, we've watched our parents' marriage fall apart, and we're letting the same thing happen to ours. We watched it. Some of us, we had our parents like yell at us and display anger. And we know the fruit that came out of that, and we're doing it. Some of us were 23, 24 years old, and we got saved radically when we were 16, 17. And at 16, 17, we stopped partying, and we went to our youth pastor, and we told him, and they celebrated the fact that you weren't partying anymore, and you weren't doing drugs, and you weren't drinking anymore. And now you're 23, and you're like, well, I'm legal, and I'm doing it in moderate, and I'm fine. And you know, and I know you're not fine. So some of you, you're hurting on the inside, and you've watched people around you stuff their emotions down, and you're like, that is unhealthy, and you're doing it, right? We're watching so much stuff, and we're learning nothing. And I'm frustrated with it. I'm frustrated. And so when I have friends that do what I do, who are losing major character, and they're losing their jobs, and they're losing their families, and all this stuff is going on, you know what it's causing me to do? Whoa. I'm gonna learn something. I'm gonna learn. What good is it to gain the whole world, forfeit your soul? Whoa. I need a simplification. I need a simplification for all of this. There's probably more in me that loves the world than I would care to admit. I need to simplify this. Some of you need to simplify your life. You can't cheat on your spouse if you're not going out to lunch with coworkers. Well, but you don't understand my job. Okay. Well, my industry. Okay. Cool. I'll be here for you. Before and after, and during and through. I'll be here for you. Sorry, I know this is a summertime series. This should be lighter. My bad. Gotta learn. Got to learn. We got to observe. And what John's inviting us to do is he's inviting us to just simplify our life. Hey, look, I'm going to have some boundaries in place in my life that are just simplifying my life. Not complicating. It's actually simplifying my life. It's making it easy. Being mindful. There's certain aspects. What you also got to understand, in fact, I want to write this down. These are just, 3 ways to simplify your life a little bit and to deal with some of these things. What would it look like to start learning and to catch those things that are potentially harming us? Here's the first one, is confession. Confession to yourself and to people that could help you. Confession. Some of you, you know what that world thing is, that it just has a hold of you. Confession to yourself. First of all, it always has to start with yourself. All of us have had people in our life, they are unhealthy in a particular area, and we're all like, they're unhealthy. And you know what the sad part is? This is what I've learned about our human nature. We'll talk to each other about it, but never to them. Come on, how many conversations have you had with friends about a friend that you're really concerned about? All the time. Oh man, I'm really concerned about her. I think she's in an unhealthy, toxic relationship. Okay, I hope she gets out of that. At least holler at her in a respectful, loving way. Hey, can I talk to you? By the way, you've heard me preach. You know I have a rule when I do this, by the way. I always ask for permission. So it might sound something like this. Hey, if I noticed that your life was getting ready to fall off a cliff, would you want me to tell you? They always say yes out of curiosity. You kind of let yourself off the hook. Yeah. Okay, that person you're dating, terrible, right? Confession. Confession to yourself. Confession to people that could help you. Can't tell you how encouraged I was. This last weekend, I had 2 conversations, totally separate, with people in our church that have gotten alcoholism under arrest in their life over the last year. It's amazing. 2 people that were like, man, I was here, and I was doing this, and I was having beer, and I was doing this, and I was doing that, and all of a sudden I was going and buying bottles and like hiding them, and I didn't even know how I got here. Confession. People that could help you, confessing to yourself. Here's another thing, stop leaving breadcrumbs. Stop leaving breadcrumbs. Another way of saying is stop leading yourself back to that place. You know what's interesting is sometimes we'll quit something, but not really. We'll quit something, but we'll leave breadcrumbs that I know how to get back if I ever want to get back. Some of you, I'm talking like this, like single people, like under 30, some of you need to delete some phone numbers. You know, you're like, I'm taking them off my favorite list. So you just added a step to go find their number. I'm confused. You can still get their number. I'm confused. You need to maybe get off social media. You need to stop leaving breadcrumbs. You and I know when we've really cut something off. And you and I know also when we have not. And when we're just acting like we are. And then the final thing is this. Count the cost for both projects. Count the cost for both projects. What I mean by that is every decision you make has a cost. Has a cost. So when you're walking down paths of life, especially when you're talking about making worldly, like not Christ-centered decisions, you gotta ask yourself, what's the cost of this? Here's the conclusion I've come to in my own life. Literally, I've been watching friends of mine fall in ministry, and I've done this. And you wanna know, literally, I've simplified my life. I wanna do a few things. One, I wanna pastor Grace City for the rest of my life. And I don't want to make any decisions that would disqualify me from being able to do that. Another one, I want to be married to the same woman my whole life. And I don't want to make decisions that would disqualify me from that. Next one, I want my kids to respect me. I want my kids to be able to look at me and respect me because of the decisions that I've made in my life. They're still going to think I'm a weird. I can live with weird. But I want them to respect. 4, I don't want to do anything that hurts the reputation of God's church. 5, I want to have authentic relationships, authentic friendships, authentic relationships with people in our church. I want to have authentic relationships. And then the last one is, I just want to be blown away that I'm saved and be madly in love with Jesus and just go, man, I can't believe, God, you love me at all. And out of that, I want to operate in the fear of God, saying, God, I'm just grateful I get to have a relationship with you. I'm just grateful that I'm here and that you love me and that you know me. Time to break it off, guys. Time to break up with the world. It's got nothing for you. It's perishing and its ways are perishing. It has nothing for you. But God has eternal life. Not just when we die and go to heaven, but a new kind of life right now. Come on, church, let's stand to our feet.